BrettCasts, transform and roll out.
Hello all, welcome to BrettCasts Transformers Talk. So I don't know if you know, but I love just about all things Transformers. Just so much. Everything from the old G1 cartoon to the current movies, all the comics and toys, be it older or newer toys. I just love all of it. But sometimes they like to do things that don't always make sense. I know a lot of people have already done videos on this, but I just wanted to put my sense into it all. So, in the Transformers universe, there's something called the aligned continuity. I bet you're asking yourself, what is this cover? Well, the aligned continuity starts with the games War for Cybertron, Fall of Cybertron, and Rise of the Dark Spark, the Cybertronian levels of that anyway. Then it goes into the novels Transformers Exodus, Transformers Exiles, and Transformers Retribution. I've only read 2 out of 3 of those. And it also includes the Covenant of Primus. Then there's a slew of comics based on the War for Cybertron game. There's a couple Transformers Prime comics, some Fall of Cybertron comics that are before the game. Rage of the Dinobots, which is also a Transformers Prime comic. And there's a bridging point from the second to third season of the cartoon. And then we have the newer Robots in Disguise comics, which is based on the cartoon. But that's not all. There's also the Transformers Prime TV show and game. And then there's Transformers Online, Transformers Universe Online games, and Transformers Rescue Bots show. And then finally the 2015 Robots in Disguise show. Yep, there you go. That's everything considered by Hasbro to be a part of the aligned continuity. In fact, all of these are a part of the same. The fact that all of these are a part of the same thing, it makes everything a little bit more confusing. Now, to make this make more sense, I'm only going to focus on the games and TV shows and leave the comics and novels out of it, especially the ones that are just adaptations or prequels to the shows. But I may reference them from time to time. So we start with the Cybertron games. In War for Cybertron, you play through, obviously, the start of the war on Cybertron. Then in Rise of the Dark Spark, you get a kind of middle section to it, but it seems a little bit disconnected from the previous game. And then Fall of Cybertron brings it all back to the last couple days of the war, or maybe it's weeks, I don't really know, with the Autobots leaving Cybertrons and the Decepticons pursuing them through the space bridge. Now, the Exodus novel goes farther than that, goes to the point of the Transformers actually arriving on Earth. In terms of the shows, the next part is Transformers Prime. That's next what we're going to talk about next. In this, the Autobots are already on Earth, and from the first episode, seem to have been there a while waiting for the Decepticons, or more likely Megatron, to return to Earth since there is a lot of energon there. Later in the series, it's shown through flashbacks how only 2 of the characters arrived on Earth, in which Cliffjumper is checking some activity on Cybertron, happens to hear a decoded message from the Autobots where Optimus Prime mentions a new battlefield on Earth. Cliffjumper eventually gets caught by Starscream, overseeing the construction of a space bridge, is about to be hauled off, but saved by RC. Cliff convinces RC to let him go with her on mission to Kaon, and they end up at an impasse where they either get hauled off by Decepticons or go through the space bridge that was set for Earth. So they pop through the space bridge, wind up on Earth, scan some vehicles, and go search for Optimus Prime and his team. It still fails to say how Optimus Prime, Bumblebee, and Bulkhead wind up on Earth before RC and Cliffjumper get there. It's not really ever explained in things before this show how Optimus Prime, Bumblebee, and Bulkhead arrived on Earth or when they did. They never show the Ark crash, despite showing other Cybertronian ships crash. I suppose given that what we know about how the Autobots usually arrive on Earth, we can just assume that the Ark crashed and whatnot, but there's still something else that doesn't make sense. The character of Bulkhead was only in Transformers Animated prior to Prime. So where did he come from? Well, according to TF Wiki, he is listed as one of the many characters in the Transformers Retribution novel, which again, I have not read, so I guess he winds up on Earth somehow. From that, I mean, he was already on Earth in Transformers Animated, so what? Well, I'm going to move on before I dig myself into a hole. Mostly because I could say the same for RC. She was only on the multiplayer portion for Rise of the Dark Spark and that Prime comic that takes place before the show. I guess they don't have to list every character who got left on Cybertron after the Ark left. Her and Cliffjumper's story of arriving on Earth is really the only one that makes sense. So then we have Transformers Rescue Bots, which I never watched this show as it is aimed for younger audiences and never really caught my attention or interest. But from what I know, it takes place alongside of Prime, and the next show I'm going to mention, but is in a different location and a different team of Autobots than Prime and this next show. Then we get to see is the show that really messes with the whole timeline. The 2015 Robots in Disguise show is, well, not very good. This is mostly because I found it way too childish for me, and I stopped either after season 1's end, or the middle of season 2, or it might have been at the end of season 2. I don't really fucking remember. Anyway, I watched enough of it, where I find things beginning to blur the lines of being part of the same continuity is when you look at character designs. Look at Grimlock from RID and from Fall of Cybertron. They look vastly different, and at the start of RID they say that Grimlock was a Decepticon. So I have to say that Grimlock in RID is not the same from Fall of Cybertron, rather another Dinobot who may have heard of the legend of a warrior named Grimlock and took up the name. This could also be applied to Sideswipe as well. Now, at the end of Transformers Prime Predacon's Rising movie, which is the direct follow-up to the third season of Transformers Prime and the overall ending of Transformers Prime, Optimus Prime sacrifices himself and creates new sparks in the Well of All Sparks on Cybertron. At the beginning of RID, Sideswipe is one of the two bots that leave Cybertron and go to Earth. So my theory here is that the character who calls himself Sideswipe just heard the legend of a great warrior named Sideswipe and took the name. As for Bumblebee, what bothers me is the way he looks in Prime and RID are very different. Not to mention that in Prime, Bumblebee had a better balance of being serious when he needs to and goofing off when he should be and has the time for it. In RID, Bumblebee goes through a lot of lessons for becoming a better leader for his team since in Season 1, Optimus Prime is not there. Despite that, Bumblebee seems to have a terrible balance of being serious and being goofy, like 70-30 bad at it. Then at the end of Season 1, we have what I think is the best part, which is the whole Megatronus arc. Obviously, it's easy enough to say that Megatron, who got killed at the end of Prime, and Megatronus are not the same characters. So then, I think that's why they decided to add the newest Robots in Disguise show to this continuity, because it really just makes the whole thing a lot more of a mess. There were characters in RID that had the names of bots we know, like Kickback, yet have no actual connection to the character they are. Kickback from Fall of Cybertron and RID are not the same. Just look at them. trying my best not to go on a rant about how much I hate RID. So there you have it. That's my take on why the aligned continuity doesn't make any sense. I honestly don't know why Hasbro made it a thing. It feels like they just took a bunch of TV shows, comics, and books and threw them all together with some very loose connections. If they really wanted it to work and have less holes, they should have tried a lot harder. The Unicron trilogy, which predates this, actually connects wonderfully across the 3 shows, and so far, the 3 shows in the Prime Wars trilogy, although we only have 2 of them right now, work well and flow together pretty good. Anyway, that's all I have to say. So thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe if you liked this. And if you want to add to the conversation, just leave a comment below. Thank you very much.